Howdy. Well, here we are with part 4. We'll be able to continue on and de-bluing and de-rusting the small parts and some internal junk, and most of the screws look really good. And we'll move on to bluing, and once we get it blued and hosed down with oil, it has to hang up someplace where it can cure for about a week. And in the meantime, we'll go inside the receiver and start polishing sears and all that stuff. We'll polish and lube tune. So without further ado, here we go. Okay, I got an interesting one for you guys. After I took these small parts out of the acid and dumped the acid out and wipe them with Q-tips and paper towels and whatever, get the excess off. The rear sight and the front sight hood there are some cheap dark metal. It was blued and everything, but that's about the dirtiest steel I've ever seen. And look at that. That part. These things here all got some yellow on them, like they were brass plated or something, but you couldn't put brass plating on there or made out of brass and blue them unless they used brass black, you know, birchwood Casey. That's interesting. Anyway, see what I mean? Some strange coating. I am going to have to take the Dremel to these. See what I mean? Why would it be that pretty brass color, like it was all shiny when new, and put that dark coating on it instead of leaving that nice contrast? That is so odd. That's going to take a good size finishing nail and that holder, you know, the ones that got that looks like those skinny shift knobs on one end that where you hammer it. That would look like a nice little bolt in there. So I have to take that with me to the F It Up Yourself store and find a good size finishing nail. They make a really nice looking bolt. Well, it's a bolt, and that's a bolt probe for the spring in the magazine, you know. But anyway, they're clean. So we'll move on to the next step with the Dremel and a stainless wire wheel and polish these up real nice. Got about 50,000. See if the brass stuff comes off. That is so odd. And this is the Pittsburgh ball end hex key set. Ball end. It was the 1/16 size. Right here I knew it was between 1.5 and 2 millimeter. So I finally got that out and I can pull these off now. Okay, I got this put back together with crazy glue, since my soldering stuff is here, there, and hither and yon. Let that sit till tomorrow, and I have to clean it up, as you can see, like right around in here, and then so I can blue it again. This part will be under the stock, the 4 stock, so you won't see it, but I'll know, you know.
Yeah.
So we'll let that sit and we'll see what happens. Okay, I finally got this little screw right here to come out of this. This one jams on in place where the screws go in. You see one of the other holes on this one here is loose, and you have to put it in place between those two holes there where the other two screws go through the receiver halves. But anywho, and I got to get all this, can't really see it, some stuff off my off my gloved fingers, a dang glue gun on there. Now I got to grind that off and polish it around there again, like about in here where this thing is. I had to super glue these halves back together. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. Right by the slot there, it's a little bead below the slot on both sides. But anyhow, got this thing loose, so now let's see if we can get that off. I got a glass baby food jar I use for soaking the front and rear sides and little parts like this, screws and stuff, in bluing and rust remover from BC, and polish them up with a wire wheel, maybe some 400, 600 grit sandpaper, and then we can put those back in that little jar as we wash it out to re-blue them. Just let them soak. I wanted somebody with a 3D printer to make me a tray to put these barrels in. So I could stick some dowel rods in both ends and use some metal hangers on what would look like a parallel bar to hang it in there and just soak it for 20-30 minutes or something. So soak it on there real good and be real nice and even and beautiful. Kind of like the 160 up here. It's a 160 pellet gun variant 1. It's hard to see because there's no light to shine in here. It's a pretty dark, rainy day, but anyway, you can kind of see some shine there in the stock. Well, that goes without saying. There's the new scope on the Model 70. Anywho, we can now proceed with getting this barrel ready to rock and roll. I had to get these two things off because that thing there where the four-stock screw goes up through it, this is the bottom in other words, is over torqued and locked in there. I broke it in half trying to get it loose. And that was just using that Umarex screwdriver thing. Okay, here we go with the next phase here. Now that I got these two rings in the middle there off, inside into the barrel there, and oh boy, that's so shiny. Anyway, I had to press this cap. You're supposed to be able to remove from the outside to get into the buttstock to tighten a screw or something, I guess. But I actually had to push that through from the backside here with the grip end of my Robo Grips there. And this is the stuff that's going in this little junior baby food jar, you know, for the older babies, whatever. With some of that to take the blue and the rust off these parts. The other screws look brand new, with these butt plate screws, well, not so much. And this is where the little bolt pin's missing for a thing to use to push the magazine spring back and lock it in so you can load the magazine. I'm going to get a larger finishing nail to stick in there, and I can I'll blue that one last. I can put it in a small container with maybe a half a shot or less of the blue and rust remover here. And there's the two front sight parts, rear sight, and the two rings, as I told you, off the inside end of the barrel, and this cap out of the butt plate. Just plain gotta soak that off. It's kind of worn and everything, so I'm gonna freshen that up. Getting thin in places. Okay, and here is the butt plate. Again, after I clean it with this gun cleaning brush right there, and I used 1500 and 2000 grit emery paper. On the other side, you can see this side, that brush and some lens cleaner. It's real nice, nice and clean. And this is after 1500 and 2000 grit emery paper. I ran out of 2500. I thought I had some more. Looks a little smoother. Gets some of the scratches out. Some of these just downright gouges. So it'll take too much off to smooth that out. But once I coat, it's already pretty shiny, and once I coat that with some True Oil, then it'll fill in some of the lower areas, and as it cures, and it'll be fine. And you take this clear tip off of this thing, or use the tip of the rim oil thing right here. Fits that hole right there. You can set it up like that to dry. So that'll work. Okay, got that cleaned up, let it dry a little bit, and got out these Brownells 1 3/8 inch woven patches I've used for wiping down the outside, or when I got more rust and dirt to get off, with ram oil, and in this case True Oil. A little bit left of the small bottle here, another small bottle I haven't even opened, and a big pint bottle I haven't used too much of. Yeah, it's not looking bad as it is, and once I coat it and let it dry, it's going to look great. And I can put it on this little top right here. There it is. The coat of True Oil. I just coated one of those little patches, soaked it with some of the True Oil, and wipe it on that way. And it'll just slowly flow out. And that'll just look a whole lot better. Make it look like new, but then you look close at it, and you can see little dings and little marks, pock marks and junk here and there. That character marks, you know. I call them character marks. You got to leave some character marks in there so it doesn't look like you tried too hard to make it look like brand new. You're just making it look like it's been well cared for, as much as can be had with a rifle that's actually used. Not bad, huh? Okay, I got an interesting one for you guys. After I took these small parts out of the acid and dumped the acid out and wipe them with Q-tips and paper towels and whatever, get the excess off. The rear sight and the front sight hood there are some cheap dark metal. It was blued and everything, but that's about the dirtiest steel I've ever seen. And look at that. That part. These things here all got some yellow on them, like they were brass plated or something, but you couldn't put brass plating on there, or made out of brass, and blue them unless they used brass black. You know, birchwood casey. That's interesting. Anyway, see what I mean? Some strange coating. I am going to have to take the Dremel to these. See what I mean? Why would it be that pretty brass color like it was all shiny when new, and put that dark coating on it instead of leaving that nice contrast? That is so odd. That's going to take a good size finishing nail and that holder, you know, the ones that got that looks like those skinny shift knobs on one end that where you hammer it. That would look like a nice little bolt in there. So I have to take that with me to the F It Up Yourself store and find a good size finishing nail. They make a really nice looking bolt. Well, it's a bolt, and that's a bolt probe for the spring in the magazine, you know. But anyway, they're clean, so we'll move on to the next step with the Dremel and a stainless wire wheel and polish these up real nice at about 40-50,000. See if the brass stuff comes off. That is so odd. And before I forget, that's starting to dry. So that's looking half decent. And by the way, here is the butt plate with the true oil all dry. Pretty good, huh? Like you just got a real nice shine on your shoes. Nice. It turns out that's like a yellow, goldish, brassy, whatever, cadmium. Now this dark metal here, I don't know, it's like a dang bluing, kind of came off and kind of didn't, because I took the stainless wire wheel on the Dremel here. It was polishing the sight parts. That was dark too, and you can see that's kind of shiny and kind of black in places. That's really weird. I ain't got nothing to get inside that thing with either. That's kind of a bummer. Typical steel die casting there, and there's steel because my grabber there has a magnet on the end. Real handy, so that's how I know. So that good, that funky gold brassy cadmium comes off. So we'll come back to and look at them when they're, after I get done taking the wire wheel to them in a minute. And the true oil on the butt plate here is dry. Looking real nice. You can see little imperfections and stuff here. The character marks. Just a little less obvious now. They've been sanded down. to kind of a sheen, and then get the True Oil on there, which fills in the low spots and everything, and just makes it look a little better, but the major character marks still show a little, and that to me is good. So that's going to look real nice when we get the whole rifle reassembled. They're paying so much attention to little details. Makes all the difference, folks. Oh, one more thing before I forget. I haven't polished it yet, but also, I just when I took the bluing off, some of this stuff's been re-blued, because this was blued over. It's a piece of stainless steel with a real, I don't know if you can see, a real small screw in it that makes the rear sight light up against the black blade of the front sight, which goes in the middle of the slot. Well, now you can, the slot is outlined with shiny stainless, which will reflect some light. So I'll take that off and shine that up by hand so that I can, it'll show up real nice against the bluing. Or more little things somebody blued over and they weren't supposed to. I could, well, you just sort of know, you know. Okay, here's what it looks like after they all been touched with the wire wheel. I got to sand that little part there by hand that goes on the rear sight. Looking a lot better though. Little, I don't know, 800 grit, that ought to shine things up a little bit more evenly. Okay, after the wire wheel and some 1000 grit sandpaper, I'm on 800 again, darn it, and buff them down with a soft piece of tissue. They're looking pretty good. And this, anyway, the front sight piece, let's try to use some Neverdol on it. There's some of that black stuff, like the front and rear sight parts there. I don't know what the hell that shit is, but I can't hardly sand it off. That part, that sight part there, is supposed to be real shiny against the bluing on the back of the blade there, the steer horns or whatever the hell. But the bolt probe for the magazine there is looking real nice. The smaller diameter there goes inside the spring, so you'd be looking at it backwards here. And apart from the buttstock there, looks a little better. It'll about as good as I can get it. Pretty nice. Well, that's looking pretty good. But for now, this is pushing up close to half an hour, and I notice you guys, a lot less of you watch these videos if they're pushing up to an hour. So next video we'll get the bluing started, and then we'll go to the trigger sears and all that, the springs and everything inside the receiver, and we'll clean them up, polish them, and you know, all that kind of lube tune stuff. We'll go through all that next time. Some of these videos are just all these little steps I gotta take that might seem nitpicky to some of you guys, but it's all worth it in the end when you don't really know what you're gonna get till you put it back together and it looks beautiful, it's working really well and all that stuff. That's what it's all about. It just takes time. It takes as much time as it takes. Somebody asked me how long it takes and how much money it takes. It's like, I don't know. I don't know until I get into it and see what needs to be replaced, what can be fixed, and whatever like that. Springs and stuff like that, you have to replace it. There's just about no other way. So that's where we're at right now with the Crosman Model 99 22 repeater. Oh, and I found a 16653 inside the butt plate. So if that's when the butt plate was made. So this rifle is at least a January '66. Not a. It's built from '65 to '70. It looked pretty old, so I figured it was a '65, but it's looking more like an early '66. So, good Lord willing, the creeks don't rise. We'll see you again.